All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Mormons, the Sisters Edition with real life sisters, Ariane Smith.
And Tiffany Hales.
We are here for the month of June.
Yes,
Our
we are.
contribution to the twin world for the month
Exactly.
of June. We are in high sticky floor season.
Very true.
With children home for summer.
Oh, gosh.
Which is also turning into sticky car season for me. Did you see that picture I posted this week?
Oh, yes, of the popsicle.
I found a green popsicle melted in the cup holder in the back of my car many days later.
Okay, which child is to blame for this?
I don't know. I really don't know because I picked up a gaggle of girls from a stake activity and they all had green popsicles.
So it could possibly not even be your child.
Possibly.
Well, I'm just gonna give you some hope here. So my son, who's 18, is in the back of my husband's pickup, and they'd stopped, I don't know, at some convenience store and gotten a drink. He puts it down on the floor between his feet. Something happens and he squishes it. And 44 ounces of sticky sugar soda ends up like all over the floor of my husband's truck. Now, fortunately, he's got, those all-weather maps, but it goes into the corners and everything. And now when he opens the back door on his truck, it's
stuck. Oh, no. So you're telling me I'm in this for the long haul.
I'm telling you you're in this for the long haul because at 18, I'm still dealing with sticky floor situation.
Okay. All right.
And he had some soda just a couple weeks ago that he ended up getting on the floor in my kitchen.
Oh my goodness.
And my husband and I just look at each other and we're just like, how old is he? Is he going to be living with us forever?
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, sticky floors don't go away. They just reinvent themselves.
I'll mentally prepare for that.
Mentally, yes.
Anyways, in other news, it just happens to be Father's Day today when we're recording.
Well, and let's explain. We usually record on a Monday night. Why don't you explain why we're recording on a Sunday night this week?
Oh, we have family travels. So here we are on Sunday night.
Here we are. You have family reunions.
Yes. Kind of like a partial family reunion.
Got it. So anyway, yes, here we are on Sunday nights, which it has been Father's Day today. So
we have to recap because we always recap for Mother's Day. We tried to talk my husband into coming down and hopping on here and talking about his Father's Day experience.
But we couldn't convince him to do that.
He was not on board this time. We'll get him on here one of these days.
Okay.
So
what did your ward do?
So my ward did cookies. And I'm pretty sure it was a crumble cookie. They didn't give them to him in a nice, pretty box like they gave to the sisters. They told all the men, go to the kitchen after church and get your treat. I think this is like so hilarious, the difference between the men and the women.
Okay.
When the women, when it's Mother's Day, your thing is delivered to you. Whether you're in primary, young women's
in a pretty box
society,
with a bow.
It is delivered. Because I think they know if they don't deliver it to you, you're probably not going to get it. Because A, you're going to forget.
Yes.
B, you're surrounded by children and you're going to forget.
Yeah, exactly.
But with the men, they say, come to the kitchen after church, and they do not forget.
Oh.
So I'm pretty sure they all got crumble cookies, which good for them.
Nice.
We got crumble cookies for Mother's Day, and I thought it was amazing. I would like to know the amount of business that Crumble Cookie does this time of year.
Oh, very
for
true.
Mother's Day and Father's Day. They've got to be killing it.
Exactly.
Because I feel like it's the new thing to do now that they're in existence.
Exactly.
What's your word?
Mass quantities of cookies. You know what? My ward does this at least every year that I can remember for the last little while. We do pies. Now, Marie Callender's went out of business, so we're not doing Marie Callender pie. There is another company here in Boise called Sherry's, and so it's a restaurant. And so,
they have those everywhere.
That's right. And so we order pies from Sherry's.
Okay.
And then what we do is we put them in like the little clear clamshells, so they're all sealed up. So then the dads
they can take it to go.
They can take it to go, or they can sit there and eat it. And so, because the Relief Society is in charge of it, what we do is we get all the pies there in the morning, then we have sacrament, and then today was a Sunday school Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so during Sunday school, we went in the kitchen and we cut up all the pies. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of beefing with another ward in my building. You want to know why I'm beefing with another ward in my building?
I can guess because I think you were beefing with another ward on Father's Day last year.
I was beefing with the same ward last year.
The same ward?
Same ward.
Same offense?
Same offense. They did not get the memo. Okay? Here's the memo. We always meet before them. Okay, that's just how the rotation goes until we are the last ward in the building, which we will be next year. And then they will be the first ward in the building. But once we finish with that tour of duty as the last ward in the building, We'll be back to the first ward in the building. We're still ahead of them. So last year we were the 9 o'clock ward and they were the 11 o'clock ward. You may have recalled that they are the ones who had their smokers going out all night.
This is the full-blown barbecue
This
people.
was the full-blown barbecue
I remember
people.
this story because I was amazed. I was like, you can do that at the church building?
And so when we brought our pies at like 8:30 in the morning prior to church to just bring them there, they had taken over like every square space of counter in the kitchen. They weren't there. This was last year.
Okay.
They weren't there. So we promptly just shoved their stuff aside and went, excuse us. We get this first.
So
you're the second ward, not the first ward.
Were they barbecuing again today?
They were not barbecuing today. What they were doing today is they were doing cookies for their dads.
Okay.
And I think what they had asked is all the young women to make cookies. So our sacrament gets out at 11:30. Theirs starts at noon. And so we're in there trying to cut pies. Meanwhile, they have like a parade of girls bringing cookies in amongst all of my pie cutters. And they're bringing cookies in. And like the people who are in charge are like, oh, well, what are we supposed to do? Where do you want us to put? I mean, they were like bothered that we were in there cutting our pies. And I'm like, hello, we did this last year. You ought to be aware of this. And it's not your time for the kitchen. You could have the kitchen at 12:30, not a minute before. So yes, I got the stink eye by a couple of their leaders. I was like, let's just say I exercised great restraint because I wanted to engage in some not so nice things, but it was Sunday and Father's Day. So anyway, I'm still beefing with the third ward, but next year we will be the last ward in the building, so we won't have to deal with them. I'll have a buffer between us and the third ward.
Got to share the kitchen.
Who thinks they own the kitchen?
Anyway, the politics of the church kitchen.
Seriously, the politics of the church kitchen. But our dads love the pies, and so that's great. And we actually do deliver. So we go around to primary, and we've got some dads in nursery, and then we go around to the Sunday school classes, and so we deliver to all the dads that we're teaching, and then all the other dads that were just in gospel doctrine. We put a table outside gospel doctrine, and they could come and get their pie
as they walk out.
We had to man the table because I had a group of teachers.
Oh, yes.
As in like 14 and 15-year-old boys who, when we took the pie into their class, were oogling. And they're like, well, I'm an uncle. I deserve pie. And I'm like, are you over 18? No, then you don't get pie. That's the rule. If you're a male over 18 and you go to adult Sunday school, you can have pie.
Yeah.
But until then, no pie for you.
Yes. You always have to guard these things.
So yes.
Primary children.
They hovered. They hovered till the very end. And they did walk away with some pie for those that hovered. But
well, it was a good strategy.
I made them hover. I didn't let them, didn't willy-nilly let them eat pie.
They're going to be showing up again next year.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
They're no dummies.
They are no dummies. So, and then I'm sure just like you guys did, we just had dinner with our husbands tonight and celebrated dads. So that was fun.
Very fun. Okay, should we start into some news stories?
Well, we ought to. I have to say this was not a lot of heavy news this week. Mm-hmm. We mostly have a bunch of human interest stories of members of the church who are in the news, but really no breaking news.
Nothing breaking, nothing crazy. I feel like it goes in spurts.
I do too.
We'll have like a lull for a long time and then it's like wham, wham, wham.
I know.
Like tons of like big either news straight from the church.
Exactly.
They're tweaking things or changing things, or just headlines of people in the church that are a little more prominent than others. So
well, and we're going into July, and I think historically all the general authorities take the month of July off, and they go, family reunion, vacation.
Right. So it might be slow for the summer.
It could be slow. We could be back here in a month for our July show going, well,
maybe, unless
it's a little cricket.
Unless Bachelorette is starting again in July. Maybe we'll find out there's some LDS people on there. That's always exciting.
That is always exciting.
We'll keep you posted.
Okay, well, let's start with the news story.
All right. So first news story we've got is, there was that big flooding up in Yellowstone last week, which is awful when you look at the pictures, and the whole park is closed for who knows how long. But this was a story just on some of the members up there. I'm sure there's several members on the Idaho side of Yellowstone, but there's also some up in Montana, which was where most of the flooding took place. So they This article just was a quick highlight of how it affected the members up there. Thankfully, nobody lost property, it sounds like, or their life. But they interviewed Matt Johnson, who is a high counselor in the Bozeman, Montana stake and the stake Young Men's president. He was on his way to Yellowstone with a coworker who was another church member when the flooding intensified, and they actually got stuck in the city of Gardner.
Oh, I know. This was a crazy story.
So good thing they didn't make it all the way, I guess. He said they literally got trapped. They went to the church meeting house and just started working with the stake presidency to prepare the building and property for anybody that needed space who was being evacuated. Also, coincidentally, he said just the Sunday before, on June 12th, the stake leadership in Bishoprics had a training on emergency preparedness that had been scheduled for many, many months. So that was coincident. It was fresh in their brains. So tender mercies, right?
Coincidence? I think not.
Yes. So anyway, it said people evacuated pretty quickly, and luckily everyone was okay. But they do have a couple of ward members that have been waterlocked. Mm-hmm. And so they've been checking in with them, just taking care of the people that need help. And the ward building is in good shape. But it does say it's now cut off from the rest of the resort town because of damage to the road.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know how they're getting to the ward building, maybe on their four-wheelers through the woods. But
boat?
Yeah.
You mean they just say flooding?
True.
Or maybe the water has receded and
Yeah. So anyway, thankfully, most of the community and members there are safe, although the community and some of the members have definitely sustained some pretty awful property damage. And we just hope that gets back to normal soon.
Exactly, because Yellowstone in the summertime is always super, super packed.
And I'm really feeling bad for the small businesses around there. I'm just
because first they had to survive COVID. So assuming they've survived COVID and now in that, at least that area of the park where it's flooded and people can't access
which I gotta say, this has probably got to be worse than COVID, because we went the summer of COVID.
Okay.
And it was hopping. They said it was the busiest summer they'd had in years. And I think it was because COVID, everybody just road tripped. So where do you
Well, you could stay in your car.
Where do you road trip? If you live in the West, you go to Yellowstone or Yosemite. So this has got to be worse than COVID for them even. So
that's too bad.
Yeah.
All right. So our next one is an article from, I believe it was from the Deseret News. Or maybe LDS Living. I can't remember which. Anyway.
They're kind of the same thing.
Although I was going to look this up today and I didn't. We had heard a rumor that the Deseret News was sold.
That the church doesn't own it anymore.
It does not own it anymore.
Our younger sister told us that, and we were totally unaware. We were like, what?
I know. So I was going to Google that today and I never Googled it. So maybe we'll have to Google that afterwards, because she went to a conference of Mormon history people or something like that. I don't remember the exact thing of what it was, and met a couple of reporters, and she met one from the Deseret News who said it was sold to a private individual.
Right. But they are LDS.
And so the church doesn't own it anymore, but it also allows the journalists to have a lot more freedom because they don't have to fall under that umbrella of church and church standards.
Right. It'll be interesting to see if we notice any differences, right?
And I don't know when this even happened.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounded recent.
It sounded recent, but I'm like, how did we not hear anything about that? So I don't know. Maybe it was just a faith promoting rumor at this conference, but it's considering it came from an employee.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. So this article is entitled Pioneer Trek is Here, What You Need to Know. Now, if you listened to last week's show, Jeff did that with Haley Smith. And he didn't do Pioneer Trek. She was this co-host on last week's show.
And she went on Trek.
She
was fresh off of Trek.
She had a lot to say about Trek. And one of the things that they were talking about how did this whole Trek thing come about?
Right.
So... And I'm sitting there listening to the episode and I'm like, I want to raise my hand and go, pick me.
Because you know.
Well, I don't know, but I have a very strong suspicion.
Okay.
So I did not do Pioneer Trek growing up. Did you do Pioneer Trek growing up?
No, it wasn't a thing. I feel like it was a thing. shortly after me.
Okay. And see, and you graduated.
I graduated in 97.
97.
And I feel like by the mid 2000s, it was a full blown thing here in Idaho, but it might have been happening already in Utah.
Okay.
But
well, here's my theory. You may recall the year 1997, the year that you graduated from high school, was also the year that we were celebrating 150 years of the pioneers being in the Salt Lake Valley.
That was it. What triggered it.
President Hinckley was the church president at the time. And if you know anything about President Hinckley, he loved my Mormon pioneer stories, you know, and he was always recounting, you know, the Willie and Martin Handcart Company stories and just all the stories from the pioneers coming across the plains. And I believe in 97, as part of that celebration, that they did some sort of a trek thing that maybe was organized by the church or some recreations. And so what I think happened is, I think after that with President Hinckley, that then stakes probably beginning in Utah.
I bet individuals went on that trek and were like, this was amazing. We need to take it back to our state.
Exactly. So that then by the mid 2000s, all of it, you know, I suspect kind of the nucleus was Utah, and it just kind of expanded beyond that, because even in the mid 2000s, I mean, I was back in Idaho by then, and in fact, I was even in Utah by then. And yeah, I do remember maybe 2008 or so, maybe my ward doing one. I didn't participate in it, but I think that's kind of where the nucleus of it all started.
You know what? We were in California in the mid 2000s, living in Southern California. And I remember our ward there doing one for the first time.
Exactly.
I was in Young Women's.
Exactly.
I was supposed to go, but a grandparent died at the last minute. Ooh. So literally like 2 days before, Keith and I were supposed to be in Ma and Pa. We handed our clothing and our supplies to another young married couple, poor little souls. And we were like, would you like to be Ma and Pa? And they naively said, sure. Having no idea what they were getting into.
Well, they clearly didn't read this article, because if they'd read this article tell you exactly what you're getting into. You know, just talks about the hike, and you'll drink more water than you've ever drunk, and what you need to pack in your bucket, etc. You know, for me, I shouldn't say this article is somewhat timely. My stake this week leaves for Trek. You may recall we podcasted 4 years ago, and I was a Ma and Pa 4 years ago.
You were all in on that.
We were all in, and we kind of had expected to be all in this time, but and even got asked to not be a Ma and Pa, but to help on some of the logistics. But I had a medical issue going on that I had surgery for a couple of days ago. So that kind of put me out of the contention for Trek.
So let me ask you, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What is harder, having surgery or going on Trek?
Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. I would definitely say going on Trek.
I knew you were going to say that.
I would pick surgery over Trek. But it was a very minor surgery. It was, you know, I didn't even spend the night in the hospital. And I might be a little loopy on pain medication tonight.
Just feeling great.
Feeling great. But yeah, no, I would hands down pick surgery over Trek.
I knew it.
Because I'm just not a sleep in a tent sort of a girl. But my husband loves it. And so that is why I've gone the last 2 times I have gone, because this is cosplay for him. I mean, he wishes he lived in the 1860s.
Okay. Well, then can I make a future prediction?
Please make a future prediction.
Should the two of you ever decide to get wild and go on a mission in your older years?
Yes.
I am predicting he will put in a request for that Martin's Cove mission.
Oh, gosh.
Did you know you can go there? I have a friend whose in-laws are there, and it is like a 4-month mission for the summer.
Shut up.
And then you go home and go back to your life. It's like the shortest mission ever. You go on a 4-month mission to that Martin's Cove. You run all those treks, and then you go back home.
Okay. Now,
and you don't sleep in a tent. I don't think. I think they go out with them during the day, and then they go back to their little cabin at night.
Okay. Now that is a mission. That is a trek I can get behind, because that was going to be my next question is, if I have to sleep in a tent for 4 months, that's probably not going to work.
No, but if someone puts a bug in your husband, in Darren's ear, this is what he's going to be like, that's the mission I want. So
that would be exactly the mission that would he would be so excited.
He can trek his little heart out.
Well, plus the other thing too is at least that Martin's Cove mission, Wyoming's not like super humid. I mean, yeah, it's going to be hotter than Hades, but no humidity. And I am not. I don't do humidity. So,
all right,
okay.
Trek lives on.
Trek lives on.
All right. Next story is from LDS Living. This was kind of a cool story. It was about this is just a cool human interest story. It's about a guy named Michael Daly. And the title was Why Working at Deseret Industries Helped a Former Stake President Heal from Depression.
I loved this story.
So this was actually really cool. So this guy, Michael Daly, he was missionary, husband, father, bishop, stake president, manager, supervisor. And then he twice was a patient of a mental health unit in a hospital. So it just talks about how they were living in Las Vegas. They raised 6 children. So this was later in life. Mm-hmm. He was a supervisor for a media company. He was busy with church callings. And then around the same time he got released as stake president, his company was sold. And he was laid off. So he kind of went from this huge responsibilities, busy, to now not having a job or a big calling. And it said it really, he really struggled with his mental health after that time. It says July of 2019, he checked into the mental health unit of Logan Regional Hospital. They had moved to Logan.
They had felt inspired to move to Logan.
So he was in a pretty dark place. And he was just really, really struggling with this mental health. And then he decided that even though he was fine financially, he needed to work.
And I think his doctors concurred. His doctors were like, sitting around is not good for you. You just get in your head, and that doesn't help anyone.
So he got a job through the Deseret Industries internship program in the cafeteria of the Logan, Utah temple.
Okay.
Now, I thought this was interesting because I'm sure he could get a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
But this is where he was led. Yeah. And maybe it was like the flexibility. Maybe it was the low pressure. It did say in part of this article that like he just wanted to be a worker. He didn't want to be a manager. He didn't want to
be in charge.
Yeah. He just wanted a job. He could go and work and stay busy. Anyway, so he said he had a great experience working in the temple and he saw a lot of people and was able to serve and help. And then after the pandemic hit, temples were shut down. And so he had to stop working. But he was starting to drift into the depression again. So he asked if he could work at a DI thrift store in Logan. So he did. And like, he just said that again, it just helped him so much with this depression. And he said there was a special spirit there. He's learned self-reliance in a new way, obviously, self-reliance with his mental health. And then he just loved the people there, working with people who are, trying to change their lives and gain skills and grow. And so.
Well, and then did it say he and his wife decided they wanted to serve a mission?
Mm-hmm.
And so they started putting things in order and then they got called to, Palmyra.
Yes, they're in Palmyra.
Which reminds me of the Fighting Preacher movie set in Palmyra and like the longest mission assignment ever.
Yeah. So anyways, it was just a cool story about, it's always a good reminder to hear the good things that DI is doing. And
one of the things that I really appreciated about this story was, culturally sometimes in the church, and they've been trying to kind of break away from this. And especially a lot of the talks we've heard in conference lately and from Elder Holland and stuff is there's a stigma. Oh, well, you're just being lazy. You should just get out of bed. You're just not tough enough. You're just lazy. You're weak, associated with somebody who is suffering from depression. And the thing that I liked about this article is and again, this is Tiffany 101, so take it for what it's worth. Take it for the advice that you're getting for free. Is one of the things that I liked about this article is it was a combination of him working with his physicians because he did work very closely with his physicians and medication, but also then reaching out and serving others and being busy and being involved.
Right.
And so I think that is just, every individual who suffers from mental health issues is different. But I think it's important to realize that, there's no one cure fits all.
Right.
but that medication and seeking professional help is just as important as, for him going, I need to stay busy. Staying busy might not be work for somebody else.
That wasn't the only thing he did.
Exactly.
He also went and got the
and so
medical help he needed. So.
And I'm sure that was probably pretty tough for him because he's in that age bracket where you don't really acknowledge mental health issues, and that, taking medication was a sign of weakness. And so I really liked the story. And it was just a good reminder that when we're struggling with mental health issues, serving others in addition to, the medical treatment that we receive can really help minimize or help overcome some of those challenges.
Yeah. It was a good article.
Okay.
All right. What do you have next?
Well, I've got two law related articles.
Oh, your favorite kind.
My favorite kind. Okay. So the first one involves the J. Reuben Clark School of Law, of which I am an alumni. And so they just cracked a top 10 list. And if you are wondering what top 10 list they cracked the top 10 list of U.S. law schools with the highest first-time bar exam passage rate in 2021. In 2021, over 96% of their law school graduates passed the bar on their first attempt. And that's pretty short of them. I mean, it's really amazing.
Because the bar is hard.
The bar is awful.
Isn't the bar super hard?
I remember when I finished the bar, calling our dad, going, I have no idea if I passed. This could go either way. This is kind of like a 50-50 thing. And if I didn't pass, I don't know if I'm going to take it again, and I did pass. But that is a really huge deal to have a 96% passage rate. That tells you a lot about the focus of the law school, and not just they try and focus more on a holistic approach, not just how to take a bar exam test so you can pass it, but they try and teach their students how to learn. But some of the heavyweights that are also on that top 10 list with the J. Reuben Clark are Harvard, New York University, Yale, Duke, and Stanford.
So they're up there with the big guys.
They're playing with the big guns. And I just think that this is really cool. Let's see, how many years have I been out of law school? A lot. Anyway, in the 25 years since I've been out of law school, they've really kind of changed a lot of their practices in how they do law school and how they approach law school to really help students be more successful. And so I thought that was awesome. And congratulations to BYU on a high pass rate. I will say one other thing about my experience in law school. I did not appreciate the quality of education that I received at BYU at the time I was receiving it. It wasn't until I got out into the real world and I was practicing and I was, meeting other attorneys who went to other schools that I was like, wow, I really got a good quality education there that I didn't appreciate at the time. I mean, I appreciate it now, and I appreciated it then when I met some other lawyers that I went, I wish I'd met you before I took the bar exam. I would have been a lot less freaked out about passing the bar exam if I'd known you.
Oh my goodness. That's hilarious.
Anyway.
Okay. This just reminds me, I watched Legally Blonde with my teenager recently. She wanted to watch it. She'd never watched it before. Anyway, my favorite line is there when the boyfriend's like, how did you get into Yale? And she's like, what? Like it's hard? What? Like taking the bar is hard?
Like it's hard? I love that line. Oh, and so then that brings me to a second law school story that we have. We have a gentleman who is a member of the church, and his name is, he's Polynesian. I'm just going to mispronounce this name. Let's just get it out there right away. I think his first name is pronounced Kaloa. And then I can't even begin to pronounce his middle name, and his last name is Wolfgram. So we're going to call him Brother Wolfgram.
Okay.
And he has this, he recently graduated from Yale Law School.
Speaking of Yale Law.
But he has this really interesting background for how he ended up at Yale Law School. So he is from, let's see if it tells us which Polynesian country he is from. It just says he's a native Hawaiian / Pacific Islander. So, Anyway, and his family is from Tonga,
Okay.
the part of the Tongan community. So when he was 4 years old, he was diagnosed with bone cancer. He overcame that disease, but then by the time he was 13, complications arose and he lost his leg. His leg was amputated when he was 13. So he kind of learned he had to, push through all of that. Then he decides to serve a mission, and he is sent to England. He's supposed to be English speaking. He gets over there, and they're like, "Can you learn some Mandarin? They really help us out." So he learns Mandarin on his mission. He's also given a blessing on his mission that if he works hard every day, his leg would be healed each night, and he'd be able to get up and go.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he does some other interesting stuff. He thinks he's going to be one major, and then he ends up being an Arabic major, and he ends up applying for law school, and he gets originally into Duke. So he is at Duke University in North Carolina. He's in his first year of law school. He's married. He has kids. And your first year of law school is like so demanding. Like they won't let you work during your first year of law school because it is so demanding. Mm-hmm. And so what happens to him when he's in North Carolina? Let's put him in a bishopric. Doesn't that sound fun? So he's a first year law student in a bishopric. So he and his wife decide to make their family and their church service a priority and just let everything else kind of fall where it was. And by doing that, he was able to end up with some just outstanding grades at Duke. And then he was able to transfer to Yale. And so that's how he ended up graduating from Yale. He is the first Pacific Islander to ever have graduated from Yale Law School. So this was a big deal. They talk about at his graduation, he had 87 family members there.
Oh my goodness.
So they say his name and like the crowd erupts, and all these East Coast people are like, who invited them to the party?
I'm sure he had to have the biggest family of the whole place.
Exactly.
I love that.
So post law school, he with some of his other family members are starting this business called Wolfgram Capital, and it is I believe some sort of an investment firm. It's a real estate private equity firm specializing in value-added hospitality investments.
Like they own a bunch of hotels.
And so anyway, I thought it just was kind of a really cool human interest piece on a couple of different things. First of all, overcoming a lot of adversity, but also I really liked how he and his wife sat down and they said, these are going to be our priorities. Family and church is first, and then school, and we'll just, work our hardest and do our best. And they also talk about in there that by making those their priorities, they felt sustained by the Spirit in being able to accomplish everything that they needed to.
Very cool.
It was very cool.
Okay. We have a couple of mom stories, which are always fun.
Yes.
Okay.
We're moms.
Yes. This first one is about McKenna Myler. She's of Highland, Utah. I feel like we talked about her before.
We talked about her before.
Because she's the one that ran a 5-minute, 25-second mile, 9 months pregnant.
Insane.
She got to go to Olympic trials with a qualification performance in the 10K. She's the new record holder for the Deseret News Half Marathon. Like, she's a big runner. LDS, famous runner. Well, guess what she did now?
Here's why she's in the news now.
This is so crazy to me.
I know.
She ran a 4-minute 37 seconds mile in blue jeans.
I know.
This is awful. Like when I looked at the picture, because there is a photo with this story, I couldn't look at it and not cringe. It's her just running on the track in these tight, skinny jeans.
Typical blue jeans.
I was like, that looks so painful.
I know. Well, and I think she'd been in California training for something.
So this was a thing. She was in California training, just doing her normal thing. And then she found out that her team was putting on a blue jean mile to raise money and awareness for mental health during the month of May. She was like, oh, sure, I'll participate. Yeah. And she was just thinking she'll make this part of her regular workout and then continue running from there for her workout for the day. So she went to the thrift store, got some jeans. She said she wasn't planning on going very fast, just a 5K pace.
Which is 4 minutes and 50 seconds per mile.
She told her,
just my little 5K pace.
I'm not going to go very fast. She told her pacers to pace her at 450 a mile.
Yeah.
Which is like mind blowing to the average human. Anyway, she said that they went out a little bit too fast and she just went with it. And she ended up running 4 minutes, 37 seconds. She broke the blue jean mile record by 18 seconds. She also beat her own personal best mile time by 3 seconds.
Okay, what kind of magic jeans did that woman buy?
I don't know. It's the sisterhood of the traveling pants.
Seriously.
I know. She better save those jeans.
Seriously.
I think they are her good luck ones.
Good for her.
This is amazing to me. I mean, also, when I look at that picture, think, how? How?
I can't wrap my head around it.
But I also really hate jeans. COVID has made me like a stretchy pants kind of girl. So.
Well, you and like every other person, I was just having a discussion with my 21-year-old daughter who's in college, and she's like, Mom, I now understand why you wear dresses all the time in the summer. She's like, they're so much more cool and comfortable. She's like, and now I understand why you don't wear jeans. I can't hardly wear my jeans anymore. I want to be in dresses or leggings.
Once you go to stretchy pants, you can't go back.
Seriously. Cannot backtrack from stretchy pants.
No. Okay, so this next story, I loved. It was so sweet. This is about a mom who is 50 years old who was a surrogate for her daughter at age 50.
I can't even wrap my brain around having a baby at my age. Even if we didn't have to raise it.
This is so bananas. So her daughter's name, or the mom's name, is Shalise Smith. Her daughter is Caitlin Munoz.
Okay.
And they are from Pleasant Grove, or the mom's from Pleasant Grove, at least.
I think the daughter lives in Texas.
Okay. So I guess she had struggled with fertility, and her first baby, they did get a baby, but they had to do the embryo, in vitro fertilization for her first baby. And she had a baby named Callahan in 2019. And then at the same time, they took out extra embryos and were able to harvest the embryos. Well, I guess she had some complications when she had that first baby.
She did.
She had like an autoimmune disease and just some other things that made it very difficult for her to have another.
They advised her, do not get pregnant again.
But she had these embryos.
And so she's like, what do I do with the embryos?
And she, of course, really wanted another child. So, of course, she's wept to her mother about this several times. And her mom said that in her own prayers, for her daughter, the thought came to her, she had this impression like that maybe she needed to offer to her daughter to do this for her. Their daughter had not asked her. I'm sure it hadn't even crossed her daughter's mind.
Oh yeah.
Because in her mind, she's probably thinking,
my mom is old.
Who would ask that of a 50-year-old woman, right?
I know.
So anyways, she just couldn't shake this thought. She just kept having it. But she sat on it for a few days and pondered it. And she, thought, okay, I would only do this if, everybody's okay. My husband, her husband.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Her. So anyway, she ended up offering to her daughter to do this. And she did. She carried this healthy baby, born 7 pounds, 13 ounces, a little girl named Elena. And they were all in the delivery room.
Yeah. So
daughter's
grandma,
husband,
grandpa, daughter, and son-in-law.
Yes.
Are all in the delivery room
together.
Like, that's a little up close.
I know. She said it was an amazing experience. There were tears all around. Anyway.
Well, and she also talks about, people said, oh, how hard is that going to be to turn over a baby that, that you grew for 9 months. And she's like, this never was my baby.
Right.
And I think about that in terms of like my own daughters, if I were to put myself in their shoes and I were physically capable, I could see being a surrogate to my daughters, and I could see handing that baby over.
I think it would be so much easier to do it for a family member.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Than a stranger, for sure, because you're going to see that baby.
Well, not only that, I'm giving my daughter something that, what parent wouldn't do almost anything for their kid, to heal heartbreak.
Yeah, and what a special bond to have with your grandchild.
Exactly. So
that is crazy.
Anyway,
really cool story.
Okay, so my next story is an interview with Gail Miller. And as you may know, she is the wife of the late Larry H. Miller. And let me explain to you a little bit about this particular interview and why this interview is kind of interesting. There in Idaho, over in eastern Idaho, there is a news organization called EastIdahoNews.com. They are not a print media. They are not a, they're not a broadcast media. They simply write stories and publish them online. And they haven't been around for too long. They got really big. They're the ones that broke the Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow case. And so that's where they kind of got really big. I follow them on Facebook, and I think that they are just I'm really impressed with how they run their journalism site, the quality of stories that they do. Well, one of their main reporters, and this is, he broke Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell. His name is Nate Eaton. Well, he has this little girl named Emily. Mm-hmm. And so you may have recall when Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell broke, Keith Morrison and Dateline NBC descended upon Rexburg, because Dateline NBC has been following this story. And Dateline NBC, Keith Morrison did a lot of interviews with Nate Eaton. And then somewhere along the line, somebody got the idea of, well, let's let Nate Eaton's daughter, Emmy, interview Keith Morrison, and flipped the tables and let her ask Keith Morrison questions. Well, this was just such a hit that now Emmy has her own, she doesn't do a lot of writing, but she does these videos where she interviews people, and they get put up on East Idaho News' YouTube channel. And somehow or another, East Idaho News convinced Gail Miller to sit down with this Emmy, who is 10 years old, and subject herself to being interviewed by a 10-year-old.
Which is funny. She doesn't live in Idaho, right?
No,
she's in Utah.
She's in Utah. And it looks like they probably went down to Utah for the interview, because it looks like they're probably like in the corporate headquarters for Larry H. Miller. But I watched the video, and it is just so adorable. Emmy is so professional, and Gail Miller is just like the sweetest, nicest grandma to Emmy. I mean, she's just like, I want to be her grandkid. She looks like she's really cool. And so Emmy asks her a whole bunch of questions like, have you ever been to Idaho and tried our potatoes? What do you like about being a mom or a grandma? When you're not working, what do you like to do in your spare time? What qualities do you look for in hiring an employee? It's about a 10-minute interview, and it's adorable. They swap gifts at the end, and it just makes you feel all good.
Cute.
So I highly recommend it.
So cute. Okay. All right. Next article. This is from LDS Living. This was actually part of their blog. They did a series on their blog called Mighty Women. And this was by Morgan Pearson, I think, who's one of the hosts of All In.
Yeah.
Wrote this article. But it was just kind of another human interest piece about this woman named Judy Error, a member her whole life. She is older. She had been married for, I think it said 42 years before her husband left her.
For another woman.
Yes. They found that out by the end. At the beginning, They just said, he left her. And then by the end, they said the reasoning. I was like, oh, okay. Thank you. Let's just talk about what happened here.
Well, and what was interesting is the kids tried to warn her, and she's like, oh, no, that's not going
right.
on.
So it said like a year before the kids were trying to warn her. She thought everything was fine. He got called to the high council. Yeah. She's like, look, he's on the high council now. He's good. And it wasn't very long after that it all came out, and he decided to leave her. And she just talked about, of course, how devastated she was. And when you're sealed to someone, you just have this expectation and this vision of what your life is going to look like. And she's starting over after, being married for 42 years.
And she's had to separate her identity from his identity because they were so intertwined. Yeah. And she talks about having to break that down and start over. And it's just kind of, what struck me about this is, I mean, not only the divorce, but there are a lot of women who find themselves, in their 50s for a whole variety of reasons, having to figure things out. A very good friend of mine just recently lost her husband, and he was 52, very young. And so when I read this article, it reminded me of her because I was like, she's going through all of those emotions that this lady is going through, going, how do I start my life? What do I do? Where do I go? Just reassessing everything that you thought was going to be this way, and now it's not.
Right.
And so I thought it was very inspirational.
It was inspirational. And she talked about, she just didn't even know where to start. So she said one of the first choices she made was to keep going to church, which she never felt like was a choice before. But all of a sudden she was like, well, I'm feeling like she had to make herself go,
Yeah.
and then she decided to go to the temple every Saturday, and she just said, over time, slowly her life began to fall into place, and she kind of created this new life for herself. And she currently is Relief Society president. She lives in Salt Lake City right now, and she's Relief Society president in her ward. And she just said, having gone through what she's gone through, she's been able to help a lot of sisters in similar situations. Anyway, it was a very good article, very inspiring.
Yes, I liked it. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, in our next human interest piece, this is a piece on Camille Johnson. And you may recall she was called to be the new General Relief Society president. She's currently the general primary president. And in April, they said, we're going to release her in August, just FYI, everybody. And we all got to vote on it. And we're going to call her to be the new Relief Society general president. So she's switching callings. And so it's just kind of a piece on some background about her. And one of the things that she was asked is what one of her favorite callings has been. And she said she loved to teach in Relief Society. I love the opportunity to engage the sisters and to be taught by the Spirit and each other during that sacred hour in Relief Society. It is there that we talk of Christ and rejoice in Christ and address matters of the heart. And so, she talks about that. She and her husband served as mission presidents in Peru, and she talks about that. She moved around a lot as a child growing up, and she talks about her father, who was a people person with a unique gift. And then she met her husband when she was in her first year of law school. I believe he was in medical school. And so they were balancing these careers because she was a practicing attorney at a very well-known firm in Salt Lake City for a number of years before he got called as a mission president. And she always talks about, again, just what Brother Wolfgang talked about in his law school thing is he said, family was and always is my priority. And so regardless of what was happening in her life, family was her priority. But what I thought was really interesting is when she first began serving as the general primary president, she said she felt the need to learn as much as she could from the Relief Society General President, Jean B. Bingham. And so she had no idea she was going to end up with this calling as the General Relief Society president, but she just kind of studied Sister Bingham, and she would go on trips and minister with Sister Bingham and just learn from Sister Bingham, and they would counsel together. And she said, I think that's really going to help me as I transition to being the Relief Society presidency. New Relief Society president. And she talks about her counselors and said she's absolutely certain that the Lord wanted them called as my counselors at this time. And anyway, it's just kind of to get a little bit more biographical information on her and her background. And, I'm not seeing she's probably not going to be doing a lot of radical new things, but it's just interesting to get to know a little bit more about these ladies.
Yeah. That's fun. Okay, next article. This is a sad one. We had another missionary pass away. This was a missionary in the Mexico City area. He was in a bike crash. His name was Elder Francisco La Madrid, and he was 22. And he said he couldn't recover a turn at the bottom of a steep hill, and it was slippery. He was wearing a helmet, but his injuries were pretty bad. And he was also from Mexico. He was from Merida, Mexico. It's a mistake. Yeah. And he'd been serving since 2021. It's so sad.
Oh, I know.
So our
hearts go out to his family and his entire mission, because losing a missionary in the field not only affects the family, it also obviously affects the other missionaries. So all right. Well, should we move on to one of our favorite segments, Mormons behaving badly?
Oh, yeah. We got some bad ones this time.
Okay.
No, petty theft this time. We got some gnarly ones.
Or bunny ears.
Not great.
On the floor of the legislature. That's still one of my favorites. Okay. So our first one, there was a gentleman who was arrested, I believe, around 2019. He was a primary teacher, and he was accused of sexually abusing a girl from his ward. And he was initially charged with a number of counts. They whittled it down to where he pled guilty to one count of sexual abuse of a child, a second-degree felony. He was having sleepovers at his house for children
with his primary class.
And I words escape me.
Me too.
Because
in what day and age is anybody thinking this is okay?
Exactly. If my kid,
in this day and age, how is anyone allowing this?
I know. If my kid got invited to a sleepover at the primary teacher's house, I'd be like, no. Like that would send up all sorts of red flags. So I don't know what the circumstances were, but again, he pled guilty to it. He's going to be sentenced in September. And so, yes, Mormons behaving badly. And finally, the last story for Mormons behaving badly. Many of you may or may not have heard, last weekend up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is northern Idaho, there were 31 members of this kind of extreme right-wing
white nationalist
group that had all loaded up into a U-Haul truck, and they were headed down to the park where they were doing pride activities for Gay Month or LGBTQ pride activities. Mm-hmm. And they were essentially going to go down there and incite chaos. And a concerned citizen had seen these men load up because they were all dressed identical. They had khaki pants and blue shirts, and then they had these masks, kind of gator masks things all around them, and then hats and sunglasses. So very suspicious looking. Mm-hmm. The cops pulled them over before anything that could happen, and 31 gentlemen were arrested. Well, they list the states that they were arrested from, and one of them was from, well, there were several from Utah.
Most were not from Idaho.
Believe it or not. But there was this one from Utah, and he's from Provo, and his mother agreed to an interview with CNN. Now, we don't know if he is LDS, okay?
We're speculating.
We are totally speculating.
Based on the Provo,
that perhaps he probably is a member of the church. If he's not, we're calling it Mormon adjacent for Mormons behaving badly.
Or he was at one point in time.
Or
his family is.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So he'd been living with his mother. He'd been having these far right-wing things, that he was involved in. And his mother kept saying, get away from that. And he didn't. When he got arrested in Idaho, she said, I hope that would have been his wake-up call, but it wasn't. He said to her that we were there to prevent them from grooming children. We were doing what we thought was right. And his mother at that point in time just said, I'm sorry, you have to leave my house. You're no longer invited to stay here because the things that you are advocating and the things that you are doing, you're putting hate into the world and you're putting yourself in danger. And so our suspicion is at least one of the 31 has some ties to the church. That's our suspicion. We don't know for sure.
Yikes.
But we're calling it good, and we threw them in Mormons behaving badly. There you go.
That's rough.
I know.
Those are a couple of doozies for you.
They are a couple of doozies.
All right.
So now we can talk about our favorite things.
Let's move on to our favorite things.
Of which I have nothing this month.
Tiffany's out.
I'm out. And let me explain why I have nothing this month. My husband and I are in the middle of a major update/renovation to our house. And so literally every waking hour for the past month has just been consumed with cleaning, purging, painting, fixing. That's all I've done.
And you just had surgery.
And I just had surgery too. So Ariane's going to pick up the slack this month on the favorite things for me. And hopefully by the time I get to when we record in July.
By then your favorite thing will be being done with your house. Hopefully.
Cross my fingers. Cross my fingers. But the reason that we had to do this, and y'all will appreciate this, when we moved into this house 11 years ago, we had 6 kids at home. And their kids are rough on houses. They did a number on our house. And so now we're down to 1 kid at home. So we decided it was time to undo the damage that these 6 children had done. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping to live in this lovely, renovated, updated house with things that are fixed.
A peaceful home.
A peaceful home.
With no fingerprints on the walls. and no damaged cupboards. I don't know what else.
Well, but I'm still going to have sticky floors because I got the 18-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So.
Okay. Well, I have two I'm going to share.
Okay.
On behalf of her. I'm taking her one.
Okay, good.
So these are both Instagram accounts that are just awesome. Okay. First one is called Betsy's Best Bets. I discovered this a couple of months ago. I love her so much. If I meet her in real life, I will run up and give her a hug and be like, I need to be your new BFF.
Okay.
Also,
what does she do?
She lives close to here. Okay.
What? She's a Boise person?
She lives in Nampa and she's married to a Keller, which we know the Keller family from growing up.
Oh, she's married
to Clint.
I was going to say she's married to Clint.
So she has an Instagram account.
Because you know what? I think Kelsey, she's the Food Network girl that's LDS. I think
Are they related?
Yes, she is the Kelsey Nixon. If I recall correctly, she is Kelsey's husband is her brother.
Okay.
I think so, but
I don't know.
Don't quote me on that.
I don't know who Kelsey is.
Anyway, okay.
But Betsy's Best Bets on Instagram.
Okay.
She's the one that told me about the Sonic pretzel that I raved about a couple of months ago. She's a mom of she has teenagers and 20-somethings.
Okay.
So, and she just shares like really fun things that she finds and totally random, like recipes.
Okay. Where's my phone? I'm going to have to put this in right now.
Recipes, hair stuff, makeup stuff, like stuff with her teenagers. I really like following her for the teenager content because I'm kind of like a new teenager mom and she's like a seasoned teenager mom.
Here we go, right here.
And so I love like just seeing kind of the fun things she does with her teenagers and she's very positive and upbeat and just a really positive account to follow.
Oh, how fun.
She shares all kinds of fun things.
Oh.
So she's my favorite. If I happen to run into her at Target, I will be stalking her. I've already sent her messages. Like private messages.
Oh
she's very nice. She always responds.
You are such a fan girl.
I know. What is happening? I don't usually do that. Okay.
Well, except you did when you went up to Seattle to see your favorite.
Oh yeah, I did.
Okay. Your favorite
my favorite podcast people. I guess this is just my thing now. I'm just meeting people on the internet now, I guess. So, all right. So second account is Charlie Bird, the former mascot.
Oh, yes.
For BYU. The former Cougar, Charlie Bird, on his Instagram account. He's always great to follow, but on his Instagram account for June, since it's Pride Month, he has been doing like this question and answer series of videos where he just answers people's questions about being a gay member of the church. And it is so good. He's just, he has this podcast that he does, Questions from the Closet. And he's always been very well spoken, but I just really, really love this series that he's doing in the month of June. He answers people's questions that they submit. And it's just really like a really short, 1 minute little Instagram reel. And it's just, he's so well spoken. It's so informative. And I just feel like every member of the church should watch this. So I'm just shout out to his account for just being awesome.
Okay. Well, and that seems quite appropriate for the month of June.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for us tonight, Twim Nation. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, if you have any comments, you can reach out to Jeff.
What is
Contact at thisweekinmormons.com.
Don't reach out to us, but you can reach out to Jeff.
Reach out to Jeff. Like my brain. Anyway, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And if you really want to be a loyal supporter for $3 a month, you can be a Patreon subscriber and help us keep the lights on. We appreciate that. And we wish you well for the rest of the summer.
Thanks for listening.